What's going on, IVE Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about the 5 things you should always do when intermittent fasting. On Sunday, I spoke about the 5 things you should never do, but I don't want to leave this on a negative note, so I made it a 2-part series. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 important things you should always be doing with intermittent fasting, and I'm also going to touch on some very exciting and new science that has been recently released this year. So you definitely don't want to miss this. I'm going to go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Quickly before we start, this video is sponsored by me, Fledge Fitness. The Fledge Fitness jump rope is available still if you want to go ahead and cop it for yourself. Only $16.50, aluminum handle with a swivel design for maximum speed. For this price and for this quality, it's the best jump rope that you can find. You can tap the card on the top right hand corner, or the link will be in the description below. And of course, in advance, thank you for your support. Now let's go ahead and move on to the video. The first thing you should always do when intermittent fasting is having a fasting window that is 16 hours or more. Now, there are a lot of fasting protocols out there that require you to fast for something like 10 hours or 11 hours or 12 hours. I'm telling you right now, do not listen to that regiment or to people who perpetuate that in their videos, because this is not just barely intermittent fasting. You can make the argument that you are doing nothing at all by fasting for less than 16 hours. 12 hours is horrific. If anyone tells you to fast for only 12 hours, you may not be activating any health benefits, and all you're doing is creating an hourly structure that maybe can help you control calories. But 12 hours of not eating, remember 8 hours or so of your fast are done during your sleep. So essentially your awake time of fasting is just 4 hours. So think about that. For the time that you're awake, you're only fasting for 4 hours. There's nothing particularly difficult about that. There's no type of activation that will come from that, and you'll get none of the benefits that come from actually fasting. And as I mentioned in the previous video, the metabolic switchover doesn't even occur until 8 to 12 hours, and it varies from person to person. After that metabolic switchover happens, that's when the benefits of intermittent fasting start to activate. So if you're only fasting up to 12 hours, yeah, you may get into that zone, you may not get into that zone. You're basically rolling the dice, you're not 100% sure. So to be absolutely sure that you're getting the benefits, you want to fast past that 12-hour mark. So 16 hours of fasting to me is the cutoff. Anything less than 16 hours, you're not getting much out of it. Yes, 15 hours is better than 14, and 14 is better than 13, and 13 is better than 12. But the farther you go, the better. And if you're going to implement an easier strategy, I suggest that you not go below 16 hours of fasting. The metabolic switchover study will be linked below if you want to take a look at it for yourself. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Use intermittent fasting for as many days per week as you can. Now, I am for the flexibility factor. If you want to do it for 5 days but not 2 days, that's great. That's better than someone who does it for no days. That's better than someone who does it for 4 days or 3 days, etc., etc. But science keeps coming out showing more and more reasons for you to do that compounding effect of fasting as many times as you can. New science that released in Japan, published in the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, shows that it is possible that intermittent fasting is actually increasing your metabolism. And this can be groundbreaking. Although this is a pilot study, they looked directly into the blood system and they saw an amazing reaction to fasting. Now, they had the participants fast for 58 hours with no calorie consumption at all, but the metabolite compounds in the blood were seen from a period of 10 hours. And you can see the chart here. All of these dots are increasing metabolites that were found in the blood of each of the participants. And it continued to go up in a linear fashion the longer that they fast. It was a non-targeted metabolomic analysis of the human blood. This isn't rats or mice. Although other people would want you to believe that every study is just being done on rats and mice, this is being done on humans. This study was done on humans. The participants had to sign a consent form to fast for that long and have their bloods tested, and 40 different compounds of metabolites, 40 were shown. If we continue to move forward and study this in bigger sample sizes, this can be very groundbreaking, because being in a caloric deficit has been shown to create adaptive thermogenesis, which is metabolic adaptation, where your metabolism reduces based on the calorie deficit. But this shows that fasting is doing a direct opposition to that metabolic adaptation, activating over 40 metabolic compounds that can increase your metabolism. This is very promising and very fascinating at the same time. And of course, this is a compounding element. So the more days that you fast, the better. And we already know that intermittent fasting assists in muscle retention. And muscle retention is the primary driver for your metabolic rate. So all of these dots of why metabolism may increase or get protected with intermittent fasting are all coming together with the new science that it's releasing. This study will be linked below if you want to take a look at it for yourself. There are other data points in the study, but it is fascinating, and it just adds another reason to why you want to fast as many days as you can, all within the flexibility of what makes it possible for you to do it long term. But understand that the more you do it, the better it will be for you. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 3, creating a fasting regimen around your lifestyle. Now this is why I wanted to touch on the flexibility factor of number 2. Doing something for the rest of your life, or doing a protocol like this for the rest of your life, is the most important caveat to the entire system. If you can't do it for the rest of your life, then it just won't work, because no matter what you do, you don't want to go back to what you were doing before. If it makes sense for you not to fast on Saturdays and Sundays because those are family get-togethers, or you go out with your friends, or whatever the case may be, it is still better for you to fast for 5 days than no days. Just make those moments the exception, not the rule. Make intermittent fasting the rule, and make those moments where you break the intermittent fasting regimen the exception. Use that as a rule of thumb so that you can not only keep the intermittent fasting protocol and not just give it up altogether, and you can stick to it for the long term, because it fits perfectly like a puzzle piece right into your lifestyle. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 4, adding exercise, resistance training, and cardio. See, intermittent fasting can help retain muscle tissue when in a caloric deficit versus those who just do calorie deficits. All these different hormonal triggers help retain muscle, but nothing will be retained if you aren't giving the physical signals that you want to retain the muscle on your body. You will lose muscle if you are not working out, and building muscle or retaining muscle is crucial to keeping your metabolic rate as high as possible, especially when you're losing weight. Also, you want to improve your cardiovascular health, and aerobic exercise or cardio exercise is what's going to facilitate that. Intermittent fasting is not going to improve your cardio. It can assist your heart because you're refraining from eating consistently, but it isn't going to improve things like your resting heart rate. Do not dismiss cardio and resistance training simply because you are doing intermittent fasting. Physical exercise and intermittent fasting work together, not separate. Do both of them so they can complement each other. Now let's go ahead and move on to the final thing, number 5. Stay hydrated. I get it, you can over drink water, yes, but if you're doing intermittent fasting protocols, it's very difficult for you to over drink water. And the reason why you want to be hydrated is because 2 things. Usually when you're eating food itself contains some sort of hydration. So you can actually be keeping yourself hydrated when you're eating a standard American diet, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between, simply by eating food, even if you weren't to drink any water at all or any liquids. When you're fasting, you're going through multiple hours of not consuming anything. And when that happens, your body actually holds on to water. So water retention goes up when you're not hydrating yourself. When you hydrate yourself, your body becomes more comfortable and releases water. So water retention goes down, and the weight on the scale will go down based on the water retention. Also, water retention does make you look a little bit fluffier on the body. Another thing is dehydration can cause headaches. A lot of times people feel headaches when they're doing intermittent fasting, and they think it's because they're intermittent fasting, but the truth is because they're not eating, they're not hydrating themselves in any way, shape, or form. Drinking water during your fasting period will assist you to alleviate things like headaches. Water retention and headaches can go out the window if you ensure that you're hydrated when you're fasted. So those are the 5 things you should always be doing when intermittent fasting. I hope this video has helped you guys, and also please check out that new study that was released in 2019 in Japan, because it is a fantastic insight on the 40 metabolic compounds that activate simply because you go into a fast. It is the opposite of what everyone has always thought when it comes to metabolism. It is possible that intermittent fasting is combating metabolic adaptation, and that is very, very interesting information. And as always, I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.